Welcome back to SJB Radio. We're here for a special segment on Bracketology 101 with here Mr. Artigas and Billy, one of my co-hosts.
How are you guys?
We're doing good. So the poll has come out, and they picked all the teams this year and last night, and now we're going to give our predictions on who we think is going to win the first round and who's going to be the Final Four. So, Mr. Artigas, I would like you to start. Virginia versus UMBC. Who do you think will win that game?
Well, I don't think a 16 seed has ever beaten a 1 seed in the history of the tournament, so I think I'm going to go with Virginia on this one. I don't think history will be made this time around.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Artigas. I mean, Virginia, first of all, even besides being a 1, they're one of the highest ranked teams in the country. They have the best defense. I don't even think it's going to be close. Virginia in the first round.
I think also they're also in a very tough division. They just won the championship for their division against North Carolina, so I think they will definitely beat the in the first round. All right, so the next game we have Creighton and Kansas State. Who do you have, Mr. Artigas?
I went with Creighton on this one. I think it's a toss-up. It could go either way, but I'll go with Creighton.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Artigas. I think Creighton. I watched a little bit of their tournament, in their conference at the end of the season, and they played pretty well. 8 versus 9 always is a tough matchup, especially in NCAA tournament. It's toss-up, as Mr. Artigas said, but I'm gonna have to go with Creighton. I've been watching. I think they're better. I think they're a little better than Kansas State.
I'd have to agree too. They looked really well during their tournament and playing for the division title, and I think they will just about squeak this one through because I think it's going to be a very close game. All right, next we have Kentucky versus Davidson. Now Davidson, I heard, had a pretty good division title, and I think they could play really well. I think Kentucky's going to come off with this one. What do you think, Mr. Artigas?
Well, Davidson actually didn't have a great year this year. They did win their conference tournament in a very tough conference, the Atlantic 10, who actually got 3 teams in the tournament this year, which is a big win for them. But I don't think that they'll have the talent to take Kentucky down, so I went Kentucky on this one.
Yeah, I gotta agree. 12 versus 5. There's always that potential for upsets. But I don't think any upset's going to happen here. Kentucky, they were a little weaker this year. They have a lot of freshmen starting this season. That's why they're a lower seed. They lost more games this year than they have in years past. But I still think because of just experience with Calipari as coach, I think it'll be close, but I think they're going to escape the potential upset against Davidson.
When's the last time Kentucky didn't start all freshmen? That's a good trivia question.
I know. Ooh.
I don't know the answer. I don't remember the last time.
But saying with the youth, I think that's why they struggled a little bit this year. They picked it up towards the end. They won their conference tournament, but I think they'll get past this one. But I think it'll be a challenge for them moving forward into the later rounds.
All right, next we have Arizona versus Buffalo. I think Arizona is going to come out slightly with this win. They're really good this year. I think they could definitely beat Buffalo.
I like Arizona here also. I actually am a Buffalo fan. They've been very good the last couple of years, but I think Arizona has too much talent on their side to lose to the Buffalo Bison, I believe, or Buffalo Bulls rather.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I agree with Mr. Artigas. Arizona, they've had a good season, even with all the scandals going on at their university with the coach and with the player. Who knows what's going on? But I think Arizona, they regrouped well towards the end of the season, and I think they're going to beat Buffalo.
All right, the next game we have is Miami versus Loyola of Chicago. Mr. Artigas, who do you think will come out of that one?
Well, it's big for Loyola just to be in the tournament. I think they're there for the first time in 25 years or something along those lines. But either way, I'm a big Miami fan. I went with the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I think Miami's going to win 6-11, just like 5-12. There's the potential for the upset that could happen. But I gotta go with Miami. They had a good strong finish this season. Loyola, as Mr. Artigas said, Loyola I think maybe the first time they've been in the tournament. So I think just based on experience, I gotta go with Miami.
Loyola actually won the national championship in the '60s.
Wow!
But they haven't been around in quite a while. So
I hope Loyola, becomes a dark horse and becomes upset. But I think I agree that the U is gonna win. Based off their talent and how well they've been playing down the stretch. All right. Next game we have Tennessee versus Wright State. Yep. I think Tennessee's gonna come out with this one. I think they're a very good team. They've been playing really well, and I think they're gonna beat Wright State.
Tennessee is a good team. I don't know much about Wright State, so I did take Tennessee, but they're playing in a very weak conference, the SEC, which was just lousy this year. And as Billy said before, even Kentucky had a subpar season by their standards. So I'm not sure how sold I am on Tennessee. So I wouldn't be shocked if they lost this game, but I did take them to win.
Yeah, I think an upset's going to happen here. I think Wright State's going to win. As Mr. Artigas said, the SEC was very weak this year. Kentucky, I think they lost 10, as I said, 10 games in regular season. They won the conference tournament. They regrouped there. But I think in the regular season, they weren't even the best team. And Tennessee, I think they were better, but they're weak too. They're inconsistent. Sometimes they've lost some games in the tournament that they should have won. So I think that's going to happen again. I think the upset here I'm going to go with Wright State.
All right, next we have Nevada versus Texas. I feel like this game could go either way. I think Texas will just about pull this one off against Nevada, and I think they could upset them.
Nevada's one of those older teams, a lot of seniors on their team who've had a lot of success the last 2 years. I took them to win this game. I like Nevada. They had a tough loss in their conference tournament, or I think they might have even been seeded higher than 7. So I took Nevada to knock off the Longhorns.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Artigas. Just based off of experience, Nevada, I think Nevada's going to win. The seniors, usually, if you've seen that one and done, sometimes like the freshman player, they don't win all the time. So I think just based off of experience, that usually comes down and helps you. I'm going to go with Nevada.
All right, next we have Cincinnati and Georgia State. Mr. Artigas, who do you have for that game?
Even though I think they're one of the most overrated teams, I think it's crazy they got a 2 seed. Cincinnati will win this game. Georgia State, again, a team I don't know a whole lot about. I did see them play in their conference championship game. They didn't look impressive to me. So I think Cincinnati will win this game, but I don't have them going much further, as I do feel that they're one of the more overrated teams in the tournament this year.
Yeah, again, I think Cincinnati's going to win too. Sometimes 15 upsets of 2 happened to Duke, I think, a couple of years ago. They were at 2 and lost. But I don't see that happening here. Cincinnati, as Mr. Artigas said, I think they're a little overrated, but I think they have enough. I think they could beat Georgia State in the first round.
I also have to agree that Cincinnati is slightly overrated. I think they're going to win this game, but I feel like in the next round, I feel like they're going to choke as the number 2 and lose.
So now we go on to the next part of the bracket. We have Villanova versus potentially, hopefully, I'm rooting for them tomorrow, Long Island University. But I think either way, well, it's a local team, Mr. C. You gotta hope they win. Oh, it's like when Stony Brook was in. You gotta root for Stony Brook.
Mr. Kalanch can never root for LIU, being a proud St. Francis alum.
Well, either way, I think Villanova, whoever they play, I think Long Island. I think Villanova's going to win either way. What do you think, Mr. Artigas?
I don't think that either of those teams can beat Villanova. So Villanova all the way.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I think Villanova's gonna go very far in this tournament. They played really well, especially the past couple of years. They've had a great squad. They've had experience. I think they're gonna come out with this win.
And then we have Virginia Tech and Alabama. This is, again, I think, a toss-up. It could go either way. 8 versus 9, that always happens. Mr. Artigas, who are you picking for this one?
I took Virginia Tech. I don't think that Alabama should be a 9. I think they got a 9 because of how far they went in their conference tournament, again, in a weak SEC. Virginia Tech can shoot your lights out, and I took them to advance.
I agree with Mr. Artigas. I think their offense is very high-powered. I think they're really good shooters on the team. I don't think Alabama was very good this year, and so that's why I'm also taking Virginia Tech.
Then we have number 5 seed West Virginia versus 12 Murray State. 5 versus 12. That always is potential for upset. I can honestly see the upset happening here. Mr. Artigas, do you see it happening here?
I'm so tempted to take Murray State. I really am. But I took West Virginia.
I have to agree. I think it's gonna be a close game, but I really think that West Virginia is gonna come out with the win.
Then we have Wichita State, a staple in the tournament, versus Marshall. Again, I think sometimes a 13 beats a 4. I think Wichita State, I think they're going to win. Mr. Artigas, who do you pick for this one?
Wichita will win, and then they'll beat West Virginia in the next round.
I have to agree that I think Wichita is going to win this game.
Then we have Florida versus the potential St. Bonaventure versus UCLA. Aidan is going to St. Bonaventure, so he's pulling for them. So I won't even ask him who he thinks is going to win that one because I think we know who he's going to pick for that one. But Mr. Artigas, who do you think? Whoever plays Florida, who do you think is going to win?
I took St. Bonaventure to win their play-in game against UCLA. And I also have St. Bonaventure beating the Gators in the round of 64. I think the Atlantic 10 was a pretty tough division this year, and St. Bonaventure's, I think they've only lost 6 games all season. You know, they just happen to be in the same conference as Rhode Island, who's been much better than people thought they would be this year. So I have St. Bonaventure moving on, and then actually beating Texas Tech in the second round as well.
I have to agree. I think they played really well this year. They've beaten some important teams like Syracuse, Rhode Island, and there was one more. And I think they played really well in a tough division in the A-10. And I think also the big part is their 2 biggest players are like seniors, so they have experience. I feel like they'll do well in the tournament.
Next, we have Texas Tech versus Stephen F. Austin. I really don't know. I don't know much about Stephen F. Austin, so just based on that, I kind of went with Texas Tech, and that they're a 3-state. They had, I think, a pretty decent regular season. Mr. Artigas, who are you picking for this one?
Stephen F. Austin. They've been one of the most dangerous mid-majors in the tournament the last couple of years, and Texas Tech has no basketball history. This is the first time they've been in the tournament in who knows how long, I think, if I'm not mistaken. If not, I've never really paid much attention to what they've done, so I took the upset, Stephen Austin.
I gotta agree with Mr. Artigas just by his own opinion. I never heard of SF Austin, but after what he said, I believe that they will take the win against Texas Tech.
Then we have a 7 versus 10. We have Arkansas versus Butler. I'm gonna go with Butler. I've seen them play in their conference tournament towards the end of the season. I think they have a chance to pull off the upset. Arkansas, as we said, in the SEC, very mediocre conference this year. So there was no standout team. So this bracket especially has a chance for a lot of potential upsets. So I think Butler is going to win. Who do you think is going to win, Mr. Artigas?
I took Butler also for pretty much all the reasons that you said. Arkansas was a powerhouse when I was growing up, but not so much lately. Butler's been through the bracket a couple of times, getting to that national championship game a couple of years ago. So I went with Butler.
I have to agree. I think Butler's going to come out with this one. I don't think Arkansas has a good enough team to beat Butler. I think Butler, even though they're ranked 10, are better than what they're ranked.
And then we have, for the last game in the East bracket, Purdue versus CS Fullerton. To be honest, I don't know much about that school. Purdue's had a pretty good season, I think. At 15 rarely beats a 2, so I got to go with Purdue.
I went with Purdue also. Cal State Fullerton. Again, I don't know much about them. Purdue is one of those teams that every time they seem to get into the tournament as a high seed, they go out early, but I think they'll at least advance past the first round this year.
I think Purdue is going to win this game.
All right, so then we'll go to the Midwest bracket. First game, Kansas, number 1 seed versus University of Pennsylvania. I gotta go with Kansas. Sometimes recent years they flopped in the tournament, but I think they're good. There's no way the 16 seed beats a 1.
Kansas all the way. No explanation needed.
Yeah, I think Kansas is too good. I think they're gonna destroy Penn in the first game.
Then we have Seton Hall versus North Carolina State. Seton Hall, I watched the Big East a little more than the other conferences. I've seen Seton Hall play. They're an inconsistent team, to say the least. Sometimes they put in great performances, and then sometimes they put in crappy performances. So I'm gonna go with North Carolina State. I think the 9 will beat the 8 in that game.
I took Seton Hall in this one for no other reason than they're a Big East team, and I remember watching a lot of their players play in high school when I was an announcer, basketball announcer at my last school. The seniors on the Seton Hall team, a lot of them were playing at the freshman level when I was at the city school that I was at. So, Seton Hall.
I think I'm going to take NC State. They won a couple of big games this year and like very close games. But I think they're going to edge out against Seton Hall, even though they've been playing really well.
Then we have Clemson versus New Mexico State. Clemson, I think, just because they play in a tougher conference, they play in the ACC. So you have Duke, Syracuse, UNC. You play powerhouses all the time. New Mexico State, I don't know much about. So based off of that and the tough conference that they're in, I got to go with Clemson. So no 12 versus 5 upset here.
I went with Clemson in this one also. Just went with Clemson. Don't know much about either team this year, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Clemson will take the win here. I saw them play a couple times, and I think they're a really good team.
Then we have 4-seed Auburn versus Charleston. Again, I don't really know much about Charleston. I know Auburn's been I think they were the best regular season team in the SEC from watching them this season, but they didn't win the conference tournament. But even beside that, I still think Auburn will win. And that's what I'm gonna go with Auburn. Mr. Artigas, who are you picking?
I went with the upset. I went with Charleston. I don't trust Auburn. I think that I know that they had a terrible second half. They didn't do well in the conference tournament. It seems like the wheels are coming off, so I went upset.
I'm going to agree with Mr. Artigas because I feel like you kind of come into the tournament with some momentum. I feel like if you just start taking a couple steps back, it's not very good. I feel like they're going to lose.
Then we have TCU versus either Arizona State or Syracuse. I think Syracuse will win the play-in game, and I think they will beat TCU. This happened Syracuse a couple years ago. I think they were the 10th seed or one of those lower seeds, and they went all the way to the Final Four. I think it's also because of the conference that they're in, and they have Jim Boeheim, who's been there forever. So for all those reasons, I got to go with Syracuse. Mr. Artigas, who are you picking?
I took Arizona State to win the play-in game, actually. Arizona State on a fire at the beginning of the season. Then they had some injuries, but most of those guys are back now. They were ranked as high as 3rd in the country at one point. Coach Hurley has done a wonderful job, so I have them winning the play-in game and then beating TCU in the first round.
I think I have Syracuse win this game, and then I think TCU will end up winning and beating Syracuse.
Then we have Rhode Island versus Oklahoma. 7 versus 10, another potential for upsets. I know, as Mr. Artigas said, the conference that Rhode Island is in, it's been tougher this year than it has been in years past. But I think Oklahoma's going to win here. I think the upset will happen here at 10 versus 7. Who are you picking, Mr. Artigas?
I took Rhode Island. Oklahoma shouldn't even be in the field. I think it's crazy that they were put in over some of the other teams that did not get in. So I have Rhode Island beating Oklahoma and beating them pretty handily.
I think Oklahoma's going to slightly win this game. I feel like it's going to be a very tight game, but I think Oklahoma's going to edge out this one.
All right, then last game in this bracket, Duke versus Iona. Duke lost a couple years ago as a 2 seed, but I don't see that happening here this time. Mike Krzyzewski, I think he's going to have his team ready. I don't think there'll be any letdowns. I'm going to go with Duke.
As much as it pains me, I took Duke also. I'm an Iona graduate, but no upset here. The Blue Devils over the Gales.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Blue Devils. I think Duke's going to win the first couple, and I think they're going to play really well. All right, now going on to the West.
We skipped one.
Oh, we did?
Michigan State, Bucknell.
Oh, Michigan State versus Bucknell. Who do you think is going to win?
Michigan State.
I think I would have to agree.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State, they're one. I personally think that they have a chance to go all the way to the Final Four. Based off their regular season, I know they have that scandal going on and everything, but I think Tom Izzo, he'll have his team ready, and I think they're going to win.
All right, now over to the West. We got Xavier versus NCCU or Texas Southern, I guess it is. Who you got for that one, Mr. Artigas?
Well, when you don't even know what the team's names are, when they're abbreviated on the bracket, I think it's hard to pick them to win the game. So, Xavier.
I have to agree. I think Xavier's going to win this one.
Yeah, I agree. Xavier, they had a great regular season. They got upset in the Big East semifinals, but I watched them when they beat St. John's pretty easily. I think they'll win. There's 16 never beats a 1. I don't think it's happening this year either.
All right, now we got Missouri versus Florida State. Who do you have for this one, Mr. Artigas?
I took Missouri for no other reason than I don't like Florida State.
I would have to go with Missouri too.
Yeah, I gotta go with Missouri. Florida State in the ACC tournament, they didn't look too good. They've had an up and down regular season. So for those, I gotta pick Missouri.
All right, the next game we have Ohio State versus South Dakota State. I think I got Ohio State getting this one. They've looked pretty decent this year.
I almost want to take South Dakota State here, but I took Ohio State. I really feel like this is almost a toss-up game. I'm not crazy about the Buckeyes this season, but I guess I'll go with them just because I haven't seen much of South Dakota State outside the conference championship game against South Dakota.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Mr. Artigas. It's a potential, again, 12-5 potential for an upset, but just based off of I haven't really seen South Dakota State play a lot this season. I've seen Ohio State play. I'm gonna have to go with Ohio State.
All right, the next game we have Gonzaga versus UNC Green. I think I got Gonzaga playing this game. I'm winning this game.
Yep, I have the Zags moving on. They've very quietly had a good quality season again, as they always do. So Gonzaga.
All right, so the next game we have Houston versus San Diego State. I picked Houston for this one.
Yeah, I saw Houston take Cincinnati, who's apparently a 2 seed, all the way to the last possible second in the AAC Conference Championship game the other day. I think that they're a very underrated team, as Cincinnati is a very overrated team. So I took them to advance here.
Yeah, I agree. I watched that game too. Houston played very well. Cincinnati, I think they're overrated as well. So I don't think an upset's gonna happen in a Houston's game, but I think they might create some upsets later in the bracket. But I think they'll win here and move on.
All right, the next game we have Texas A&M and Providence. Who you have, Mr. Artigas?
I think we skipped one again.
Oh, we did. Why is it getting cut off?
Yeah, we got Michigan, Montana.
Okay, so who do you think is going to take Michigan, Montana?
I'm a big Michigan fan this season. Almost would like to say that Michigan will play Michigan State in the national championship game, but we'll get to that later. And that's not my pick, actually. But I do have Michigan moving on here.
I think I'll have Michigan moving on too. I think they played really well this year.
Yeah, Michigan. I watched them play in the Big Ten tournament. They played pretty well. I think they're gonna win and move on.
Now Texas A&M versus Providence. I think it's going to be very close. I think Texas A&M is going to come up with this one.
I have Providence beating Texas A&M. Providence just put on a show during the Big East tournament, upsetting Xavier and getting to the final before losing to Villanova in an overtime game, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. I think Providence will upset here. They stunned me. I don't even think Xavier should be a number 1 seed. I think it's a little overrated. They upset them, and then they almost took Villanova in the championship game for the Big East. I think Providence is an underrated seed. I think they're going to win, and I think they can make some noise in the later rounds.
All right, then we have North Carolina versus Lipscomb, and I think North Carolina is going to win this one. I think they played really well in their division tournament, and I think when I watched them play Duke, they looked really well. So I think North Carolina is going to win this one.
Tar Heels all day.
I agree. Tar Heels are going to win this one. So now that we did the first round, we'll just go through and we'll pick everyone's final 4 picks, and then we'll pick the national championship. So, Mr. Artigas, you can go first. Who do you have in your final 4?
All right, my final 4 for this year. Coming out of the South, I have Virginia. Out of the East, Villanova. Out of the Midwest, Michigan State. And out of the West, University of North Carolina.
Okay, so for my Final Four, coming from the South bracket, I have Virginia. I think they're one of the best teams in the country. For the West, I don't have Xavier number 1 seed. I'm going to go with North Carolina number 2 seed. In the East bracket, I'm going to go with Villanova, and then in the Midwest, I'm going to go with Duke. So that's my Final Four pick. And who do you have?
I think I'm going to agree with you. I think I have Virginia, Villanova, North Carolina. I think Duke. I think that's going to be the Final Four matchup. I think it's going to be really exciting to watch.
All right, national championship game.
I have one question. Who do you think is the biggest underdog in this tournament?
Biggest underdog in the tournament? A deep underdog or just not a 1 seed? What's
a deep underdog that you think is going to go far in this tournament?
That's a tough one. I'd say out of all the teams in the tournament, I like Houston as a 6. I like Nevada as a 7. I like Providence, but not enough to get by UNC in the second round. And you know what? I'm going to go St. Bonaventure to win 2 games.
Yeah, I would have to agree with some of your picks. Who do you have winning it all?
I have Michigan State over the University of North Carolina in the national championship game.
I think I have Villanova over North Carolina.
Yeah, I don't want to see a third straight year of Villanova UNC, but I think it's very possible that could happen. So it would be cool if we got North Carolina and Duke. So I'm gonna go. I want to say that I want to see North Carolina play Duke, and I will go then with Duke winning it all. So that will do it for our bracketology. I want to thank Mr. Artigas for coming on and making his picks.
Thank you guys for having me.
And I want to thank Mr. C, Ms. Sanchez, and thank Ian for helping out too. And we'll see you soon.